So like I was saying, I was in Reiterwacht now with this new family, and yeah, um, there's this thing that I've learned through the whole welfare process, and it's called a honeymoon phase. It's where when you put with a new family, the first 3 months is the best because personalities haven't kicked in yet. We're still getting to know each other and the feelings and the know about. So sort of put the best foot forward, and in the next 3 months things start deteriorating, and really after 6 months you sort of know if it's going to work or not. That's when personalities and everything is back to normal and everything is stabilized. And so this family, they weren't too bad. It was a woman, a lady, and her husband, and they had 2 or 3 of their own kids. I can't remember, 2 elder boys. Well, they're actually men. They were men back then already. They were slightly older than me. I was 16, but they also had this 3 other kids. Like I said, I think it was 2, 3, or 2, 4, 6, somewhere there. And I remember at this stage, I think my grandfather had moved out of Cape Town, and I went to go sit with my grandmother. She moved with one of the uncles to Goodwood, and I sort of just across the train tracks, I went to go visit, and it was also the last time I saw my grandmother alive. Well, seen, because after that she passed away after she moved. But anyway, my grandmother, for the first time in her life, started talking about my father and a little bit about my life and where I come from, and she gave me a bit more detail as to who I really was. Basically, nobody ever spoke about me as a being and where I come from and who my father was and who my mother was. Like I said, we called my mother on a nickname, and my grandmother and grandfather we called mom and dad. So it was a bit of a confusion all the years in my life. I think I knew they were my grandparents, but I was raised with them being my parents. So she opened up a little bit about my father and how to contact, or try at least to contact him. There was a guy in Bloemfontein who had a shop, and she basically told me to go speak to him. And then she said, like, my father's not such a bad person, and I haven't been told the whole truth about my life, and I need to find him and get more of what the truth is, if I can put it that way. And I remember going home that day, and I think it's the most I've cried in my whole life, because I knew that I wasn't going to see her again. I think we went to the bus stop or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember I was lying on the bathroom floor crying. Like, yeah, I was sad. That's probably the saddest day I've had in my life, and I've had some sad days, I'll be honest about that. And I remember the lady that I lived with, she said to me, like, you nuts, just get yourself together, and try to comfort me, but sort of also on a bit of a rugged side. And anyway, so yeah, that's the last I've seen of my grandmother. Very, very sad day. And then this family I lived with, I remember they had this little boy, and that auntie, she gave that boy a beating one day. I mean, he's 2 years old. I don't think he even knew what a beating was. And then he peed himself, and then she beat him because he peed the floor. And then eventually he put in his pants. And I mean, again, that's not right. I'm a 16-year-old boy now. I know right from wrong, or I'm starting to know right from wrong. And I'm looking at this, and it's just, I'm back to where I was. And at this stage, I tried to make it work best I can, but like I said, I was also rebellious. I was back in school now. School was horrible. I mean, I got into fights almost on a daily basis. Just remember, I come from the streets now. I lived with gangsters. I didn't fear anything. So, and then also I don't have money, so my clothes aren't the best, and I sort of just put on what I could. And I remember the one day, it was winter, and the one teacher, he just sent everybody out of class because he wanted to take my jacket off. And I said to him, it's cold, I'm not going to take it off, I'm freezing. Like, then give me a jacket and I'll put another one on. And did we fight in that classroom. I don't think there was a table standing upright after we were done, and I just refused. I said I was not going to take it off. like I said, at this stage in my life is where I started kicking back now, and I said enough is enough, And I remember at this stage I started going back to church. I was just literally sort of almost across the road. I don't think I went for the right reasons. I don't think I knew what the right reason was, but at least the friends I met were slightly better than the other ones I could have met. And my life was sort of on track. I was going to school. My standard 6 I didn't do too well because I came from a technical school in Springs and I was now in an academic business school, which obviously the transition for me wasn't lekker, and I opted to redo my standard 6 based on the fact that I came from a technical school. I did half a standard 6 and it's now an academic school, and also I didn't listen. I couldn't study. I mean, my mind was broken, but nevertheless I lived with these people. And I remember at this stage, I mean, I was like a scolly in Cape Town. We call it scollies. It's like guys out in the streets, and I used to carry this big bloody knife in my backpack, and I was just, I don't know, no, I wasn't any good. I tried to be, but again, if I wasn't treated fair, I reacted. And I remember the husband one day, I was 16 years old, and I don't know why. We were standing in the backyard. I can't remember, I think his one son or a friend of his was standing there, and he pulled his gun out and he shot in between my legs into the grass. Now, I mean, again, it's not something that you do, And I remember at this stage, I went to the welfare organization quite often, and I told them about these things. But again, I was enraged, man. I was beating my fists broken on everything I could. I mean, there was one day in school where I got so upset in the classroom that I ran out and I punched the stop street. I literally punched the stop street. I bent the pole. I mean, I was furious. Like I said, I was in full rage at this stage, and I had the headmaster. He always tried to look after me, and he tried to guide me, and he tried to keep me calm, and he tried to explain things to me, and he drew this triangle thing, so sort of like this, where this part he says is you, and this part he told me was like the reaction. So he says this is the cause and that's the reaction, and then sort of on your way to the reaction is your personality and God. And he said, like, you're like an animal. He says everything that happens to you, you just react and you don't think. And it's true, I was like that. But I understand why I was like that now, because it's all I've been given my whole life. I mean, I had no say where I come from, and any retaliation or we call it back chat. I mean, I would get a backhand straight. I didn't think to talk back because that's sort of what I was dealt. But anyway, try to go to school, try to do things right. I think I lived there my standard 6 and maybe half of standard 7 if I'm not mistaken, or maybe not even. And then I moved out. I said to them, listen, I can't live here. Then one of the welfare, I can't remember if they first put me somewhere else temporary again and it didn't work out. And then one of the welfare organization ladies, it was a colored lady and a husband. They had 2 boys. I think one lived with us and the other one came on weekends and every now and again. He was sort of a little bit older than me. But again, I mean, at this stage, I started smoking weed. I started drinking. Things didn't go well for me as a being itself. I didn't do too bad in school. Standard 7, I was doing 80s and 90s, sometimes in the hundreds. So nothing wrong with the brain. It's just the willpower was absolutely nowhere and the self-control was absolutely nowhere. And because I was never taught how to stay calm and collective and study and learn, I couldn't do that. It was very difficult. And obviously the lady was working, the husband was working, so I was home alone till 5 every day. I tried to study. I didn't always do too well with studies. I'm typically that guy that every morning just before the exam I squish through the whole thing and just clump it in and then write the exam. And I didn't do too bad. I mean, anyway, sorry. Then I stayed with him a while and things didn't go well. That was my fault. And then I met a friend and he said to me, you know what, he's got a day job and he can afford, I can stay with him in his room. He was renting a room. So I went to go live with him. Still went to school, he went to work. We were sort of alright. No, I'm lying, I didn't live with him first. There was this lady a girl in our class, her other daughter was a matric. They offered for me to come stay with them, and I was living in their granny flat at the back of the yard. It was not a granny flat, it was a window house. It's a little wooden house, one room. So I lived in there, went to school. But I mean, also again, they weren't fair at all to me. Don't know why. There were good and bad times in that house. I'm not going to say it was all bad. I just think, like, I remember one specific night where they were all out clubbing and they came back and they didn't know that I was awake. I was lying I was sleeping in the lounge, and I heard them come in and I heard them talking about me and saying like, oh, he doesn't even know his father is and nobody wants him. He's like rejected all over. And I remember getting up and I cried and I just walked out and I thought, again, here I go. And I went to go live somewhere else. And then, like I said, this friend of mine said I could come live with him. So I moved in with him. And I still went to school. Then there's a teacher that came to school. He wasn't a teacher per se, but he started giving some of the classes. Maybe he was a teacher, but he had a different profession before he came to teach. And one day, I can't remember what I did, but he literally took me by my arms and he held me out the window and he said to me, second story, he said to me, listen, you're not going to try your stuff with me. I'm going to throw you out there. You need to become a human being because you're not human. And he then started this eco garden in school where I then got involved, and then instead of catching on mischief and running around after school, I would go break times, go work in this garden, after school go work in this garden. It was hard labor. We worked. I mean, we dug a fish pond, and it's probably bigger than my swimming pool. Yeah, it is. It's probably 3-4 times the size of my swimming pool. And we dug this thing by hand, 2-3 boys. So we worked. We honestly worked. We worked hard. And in this time, I started calming a little bit down, and I started being better. I had a little bit more control. I think for the first time in my life, I actually had something to look forward to, something to keep my mind occupied. And there's this individual that actually showed a little bit of care, And but anyway, so through this, I decided I wanted to go to college. The school wasn't for me. Like I said, it was a full academic school, and they had weird classes. So they didn't have normal math, they had business math, they had economics, they had strange subjects. It was like a college school. It was something that they were going to try or tried, I don't know. Anyway, so I got myself into, actually the headmaster pulled some strings and I didn't have to pay, got me into college. And then I started doing electrical and electronics, and I did N1. And then while I was doing N1, in this community I was living, some people came to do some charity work. It's uitreik in Afrikaans, outreach. And I met some people from Somerset West. Again, I think it's just God sent angels along the way who sort of took me out of situations where I was in. And I met these people, and they were good people, and I went to go visit them often. I actually landed up dating the one daughter, which was a bit of a problem because the parents never accepted that. I mean, I was this boy from nowhere, and this was a straight A student who just got A's in everything. And then even when she did her adult B, she did extremely well in university. But nevertheless, I met them, and I started seeing a different side of life. I started seeing normal people with their own problems as well. Don't think that normal people don't have problems. Everybody's got their issues. I mean, their daughter was just as rebellious, maybe not as aggressive as me, but very rebellious at times. Anyway, so I was going to college, and then soon after, I think I did N1 and maybe some of N2, and then I dropped out. I started working, started doing air conditioning for a couple of months, and it was actually going well. I wasn't lazy. I worked hard. I was a very hard worker. I've always been. And from there, these people, they bought me a motorbike, and I could actually drive to work or ride to work. And then one afternoon, I was going to go live with them because they said I must come stay with them, and then they were going to help me through the church, go back to college, and yeah, I'll be back in college and I can finish my studies. So the day before I moved back to them, I actually smashed that bike to pieces. I can't remember exactly. There's a dog ran in front of me and I was speeding and reckless, and the bike flipped around, fell on my back. I got hurt bad, but I survived. And I mean, I fell straight over and I knocked my head. The helmet broke on one or two places, but nothing serious happened to me. I cut some veins in my foot, didn't break anything, but I was crippled for a couple of days or weeks. So I went to go live with these people, and I was going to college. They dropped me in the mornings, and in the afternoon, I can't remember if they picked me up or I went to their business. But at this stage, me and the one daughter, we were constantly in arguments. I mean, we were not around about the same age, but we did like each other, and we had sort of a fling going before I lived there, and then she was seeing another guy. So it was difficult. We were constantly arguing, and she wasn't fair at all to me. Obviously, I've just invaded their space, and their parents saw me, or her parents saw me, of their parents. She has an older sister as well. They saw me as the boy they never had, and I really appreciated them, and I tried to do my best. But again, I mean, they have a complete different background from me. And I remember the one day where the uncle who used to try and help me with my math, he's very good in math. I think he was a math teacher at some point, and I couldn't understand something, and he's like, how stupid do you want to be, and how stupid are you, and why can't you understand this? And I don't think there is such a thing as stupid. I think we are all wired differently, and I think we all understand things differently, and I think you just lack the patience. And I must say, and I think because of all the arguments between me and his daughter, and I like music, I'll be honest about that, so my music was always too loud for them. Again, different personalities, different. It's difficult taking someone else into your house if you are used to living your way. So not long, they got me a place to stay in a communion with 3 other guys, and that's where I went completely off the rails, because I think that's the last rejection I had before I gave up. I went to college, I started smoking weed again, I started hanging out with the wrong people. The one guy that was living in the house, he was a crack addict, and this is where I got introduced to drugs at the age of 17. Like I said, he was a crack addict. The other guy was a chef. He was in and out, not a bad guy. But this one guy, like I said, he had strange people around, went strange places, and there was no place for a 17-year-old boy to be. And soon I quit college, and soon the funding stopped, and soon everything else stopped, and I was back fending for myself. And I actually started selling crack cocaine to him and to all his friends, and that's how I sort of made a living for the next couple of years. It wasn't long before I got involved with the prostitutes, where he hung out with them, and that's actually how I got into that business. I started selling drugs to them, all kinds of drugs. And I met one of the guys that worked in the place. He ran the facility for the other individual I landed up working for as well. He had 2. He had the one in the Strand, and he had another one in Parow. So, like I said, I started selling crack, and then soon I started using it. I actually started off with crystal methamphetamine. I wasn't too much into the crack at first. I didn't like it. I didn't grasp the concept of it. I just didn't do it. And then soon I was hooked on methamphetamine, and I was selling crack to the prostitutes. And soon I was out of the place I lived. Obviously, I quit college. I quit everything, and I was basically back on the streets. And the manager of that brothel allowed me to stay over there at night when it closed down. So during the day I would just operate wherever, and at night I lived in that facility. And again, the video is getting a bit long now, so I think I'll make another video to continue where this one stopped now. But yeah, as you can tell from here, my life is now spiraling out of control. Next video, we'll go into more detail about everything.